Okay, so for step 29, we need to check the RC equipment, make sure everything's okay, and make sure that this servo is in neutral. So I've plugged everything in. I'll turn the radio on, and for this kit, we're installing a TBLE04S Tamiya ESC for this. So let's just make sure that this is in neutral, and once it is, then we can actually install the servo saver and everything else. So I will just turn this on and we should see that move, which we have. So now we know that that servo is in neutral. So now we'll put on the servo savers. Okay, so as you can see, we need P5 because I'm using a Futaba servo, and then these pieces. I've just gone ahead and done that. So this is what it looks like. Now, obviously, this has to be completely perpendicular to the servo itself, and you can see that it's not. But that's because of the way that fits onto the ribbed servo. And I'll make the final adjustment in the car so that I can actually level that out so that it's flat. But otherwise it is done. So step 29 is complete. So we can move on to step 30, which is attaching the tie rods. And as you can see, the two tie rods are going to go onto those ends. We've got these pieces here, which we will put on as well. But I noticed something here, the adjuster, it's showing that they want you to cut off the end bit, right? And I don't know why. I've done a pre-test on the car itself, and this is out of the way. So I actually am going to be a rebel, and I'm not taking it off, because I don't see the point in cutting that off for no reason. Now, if I find later that I have to, that's one thing. But honestly, I've already looked, and there's nothing going to interfere or catch with that little lip. So I'm not going to start cutting things off when I just don't see any reason to. So I'm going to leave it. So we'll go ahead and attach all of these pieces and then move on to step 31 and install all of the radio equipment. Okay, so both tie rods are finished. We've got our servo all set with the pieces to install it on the chassis. So we will move on to step 31, which is installing all of the electronics. And I've pulled together the screws and stuff that they want here, including this switch cover. But I think what we'll do is let's start with installing the servo and get them on the arms so we can see how that's going to look, and then we'll attach the ESC. So here is our finished servo, built and ready to go. So what we're going to have to do is first put this in, because these parts are going to have to be on the outside of the chassis, and you'll never get them on if you don't put them on before the servo is installed. So if we take our tie rods and slide them down and under, now they're where they need to be on either side. So now it's a matter of screwing in the servo. Now you can see on the back side where this is to go, it's recessed quite a bit. So you can see that we're going to need to put the screws inside of those holes. And you can see that there's actually quite a bit of play on both sides. So first we need to get those screws in. So I will do that. I may do this off camera because I was finding that this is actually quite awkward having a camera in front of it, but we'll just try here for a second. So if I attach my screw to the screwdriver, and we've got both holes there. Let's just see what we can do here. I need that going in as level as I can. Yeah, that's not too bad actually. If I grab the other one, I just want to get them in somewhat even for now, so that we can take a look at how this is going to go. If I grab that other screw, and you can see we need to find that hole. Okay, so they are in, but you can see that there's a lot of play both ways, so we can actually make some final adjustments. But what I'm going to try and do is put this dead center, and in some ways you can tell that it's almost in line with the groove that's on the chassis. So I'm just going to screw these in off camera, and then we'll come back to finish this off. Okay, so those are now fully screwed in place. So this is what it now looks like. Everything's tight. We would then just need to put on these ball joints, or I should say the ball connectors. But I'm not going to quite do that yet. I think I want to do the other parts first, and then we'll see. But at the moment, it's looking fairly level. I know there's probably going to be some final adjustments with that, but I think let's move on to installing the ESC. So we've got the servo in, so now we're going to install the ESC. And as you can see, they want you to put that pretty much on the base of the chassis, just by the hole that you can see there. And I've actually put the double-sided tape down because that's pretty much where it's going to go. But I noticed that you can see that they're actually showing you a TBLE 04S, which is exactly what I have here, which is what we're going to install. So based on their directions, which I'm going to do it the same way, we are going to install it with all of the cables coming off the back end, which means that these wires will fold over for the motor hookup, and then of course that one's going forward for the battery hookup. So we'll just attach that the same way that they have here. So really what we're going to do is I'm going to peel off the other side of the double-sided tape, and we're going to push this down and have it pretty much right there. So these cables, the 3 motor wires, are going to end up going under here and around, and then these ones will attach there, which I'm not going to quite do yet. And then this battery one is obviously going to reach around and plug in on this side for the battery, and then these will of course fit onto the receiver as well as the steering servo. So that's in place. So what we'll do is I'll pull together this, and we're going to install the receiver and put in the receiver switch that's going to fit down and underneath at the bottom, which you can sort of see right there, is the placement of that receiver switch. So I'll grab the parts and we'll install that. So they're not saying it here, but in order to do this properly, you're going to want to take off the plate that's already there with the screws, because obviously the new screws that we're going to use from the bottom of the chassis up are going to go into this. So you need to take that plate off. Because then it'll be nice and flat so we can attach the other part. But the thing is, we've also got a boot to put on. So once we take that off, if we backtrack, you can see that there's this rubber boot which has to go on first. And we know, based on the way the wire is going to go, how this is going to sit. So we're going to put that into So we're going to put that into the boot, and of course the way that wire is, so we're going to put this into the boot, and you can see how that wire is, that we're going to have that come out of the back end of it. So just make sure that that fits. I'm going to bend that a little bit up and then slide the whole thing onto it, and then that's going to match. So that's going to protect it, obviously, and then we're going to put this onto, or slide it into the hole. There we go. So that on the other side, you can see where this is, that we're going to now screw in on both sides to hold it in place, but the rubber boot's going to keep all the dirt, debris, water, etc. out of it. So we need to just screw that in, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that because it'll be fairly simple. Okay, so you can see that the two screws go into the washers, and then they go up inside that bottom of the chassis to attach the switch. So you can see it's well recessed below the chassis, and now we have our on-off switch right here for turning on and off, and the rubber boot is going to keep all the dirt and debris out of it. So last thing we need to do on this step is put in the receiver and attach it. So I'll grab the double-sided tape that we need to put down, and we'll attach it to the chassis. So in the end, I'm going to go back to here and take you through the whole setup. So it showed that, and you can see the cable from the motor going in through the roll cage and out the other side. Well, I've done that here, and you can see it's going in, around, and then out on the other side, but it's still completely out of the way of the shocks. So then we're showing it going into the motor stuff. Now, because this is a TBLE 04S, it's going to be yellow to yellow. So we'll stick that in there. And green to blue. There we go. Yeah, so the thing is, the orange one would be there if you've got a brushless motor. Because this is the 540 standard silver can, we don't have that, so it's going to be left basically unused. So the motor wires are now attached, and then down here with the receiver, one of the things that I think I've mentioned in other videos, I don't see the point in buying a radio for every single kit. So what I've done is, we have my receiver, which I have Velcro on the back. So what I've done is I've actually attached a Velcro piece here so that I can just put that down and it'll be attached. And once that's out of the way and screwed in, it'll be out of the way. But it's just attached. I don't have to worry about it. But I've got to undo that now. What we do have to do is we've got to attach this. So the electronic speed controller goes into slot 2. We'll put that in there. And our steering servo goes into slot 1. Just got to remember which way. There we go. So slot 1. So they're both in, and now I can put the receiver down here. And the cables will be out of the way. Now, I am going to move a few things and then strap them down. As you can see here, there are some tie-down straps. So that would be next, but otherwise that is all attached. I'm going to take a closer look to see what I want for strapping it down. Then what we can do is move on to 32, which is adjusting the steering. So for step 32, the steering adjustment, I gotta tell you, at this moment, I'm not worried about it, because if you can see how the axles are, they're pretty level. I know there might be some final adjustments once the tires are on and once it's driving. Maybe we'll do an adjustment there. I see that they're kind of wanting there to be a bit of a toe in, which is fine, but at the moment, once this is all hooked back up to the radio and we've got it running, I think I can do final adjustments there. So I'm not going to worry about it at this stage of the game. But you will notice that now they're talking about working on the body. And as you can see in step 33, it's talking about the trimming of the body. 34, it's talking about painting the body. And then 35, we start installing bits and pieces to the car. Well, as you know, this car comes pre-painted, pre-cut, and it is ready to go. So we are going to be able to skip 33, we're going to be able to skip 34, and we're going to be able to move right into step 35, which is attaching all the different bits and pieces and lights to the body. So I'll set everything up and we'll get started on that.